is aux cords, right? This is a female connector. This is a male connector. All right, so making it simple, biology, you know? Hey, yo, what's up, you guys? So I'm coming to you with another video, and we're talking about Matt Walsh. We're talking about Dr. Phil and the trans debate that happened recently. And you know, I like these discussions because I think these discussions are important to have to kind of like educate ourselves, right? But also kind of like to see if these arguments stand on their own. Is it a house of cards, or is it actually something of worth and value that can withhold the test of time just because it is on facts, right? And so I like this discussion because we kind of had the discussion last night with some of my friends. We were watching the Harry Potter 20th anniversary on HBO Max, and it was great. That thing was cool and everything. But you know, there was this thing that J.K. Rowling wasn't really involved in this thing because you know she's getting controversy and cancelization by the trans stuff just because they put her as a trans exclusionary radical feminist by just standing up for women, right? And so I think these are all important discussions to have. And so with that said, shall we begin? But first, of course, if you're new to my channel, what is up? My name is Mitch, Maverick Mitch. Hey Mitch, the real Mitcher and all the Mitches, and pretty much I like talking about what I like talking about. So current events, reviews, pop culture, social, political commentary, be sure to check out all those videos as you're finishing this video. Alright, so to preface this video a little bit, so we're going to watch the things from Matthew Walsh, talking about all this stuff, his breakdown days after being on Dr. Phil, and so we're seeing the interaction on the Dr. Phil show and everything. So we'll take a look at it, do reaction, and do some discussions on that. But also, I kind of also want to preface and do a disclaimer. You know, again, this is a touchy subject, right? I don't want to come out of this as like attacking anyone and everything, but I just kind of want to go into the actual discussions, right? We don't have to go talk about the peoples individually and all that stuff, but we should talk about the actual subject matter, right? And so I think also, real quick, I just like, on a libertarian level, sure, there's a don't tread on me and do what you do, right? And I think that's fine, right? I don't think people have issues as far as individually you do what you want to do, right? You want to dress or present yourself however you want. I think a lot of us, and I think this is where the conservative side take issues, is if you're changing things, words, definitions, if you're changing, like allowing hormone blockers to minors when you can't have minors consent to alcohol and a bunch of driving and drugs and all that stuff, why are you going to give hormone blockers to minors, right? And so you have these things when you're enforcing this, not in an indoctrination level, but just enforcing this policing speech, and I think people have an issue with that, right? And so that's the issue, right? Because really, just real quick, like, I do have people, trans friends in my circle of friends, mutual friends and friends myself, and so and what's also interesting real quick with that is like within that Filipino circle, I have trans friends, but I have no friends that actually identify as Filipinx, to my knowledge. Maybe behind the scenes they identify that without my observation, but I have no friends, and I only bring that up because I recently did a video on Filipinos rejecting Filipinx. Be sure to check out that video. But again, to the point where having trans friends or trans friends within my mutual circles, you know, again, I want to be able to come to this like in an apologetics mind frame, like treating this with love, compassion, and mercy, and not attacking them. But we have to talk about these actual subject matters and still be lived in reality, not to take away from your identity, not to take away from your experience or whatever, but at the same time we have to have these discussions so that we can live in reality and not live in some matrix world, right? And so we're going to go into Matthew Walsh, take a look, and Dr. Phil, and take it from there.
You're saying that there should be no construct of gender, just sex. You're either male or female,
right? And
someone feeling in a mental, emotional way that they don't identify with the sex that they have been biologically created as and assigned at birth based on their genitalia. If they don't feel that way, that there's no construct that describes that, experiences that.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the reality. You can feel however you want.
Like, pause real quick. I love that already we have to go into such precise thinking just to get into this level, right? Like we have to walk around what's happening just to figure out what's happening.
I mean, I could sit here and say that I feel like a tomato plant, but that doesn't mean that I'm actually in those things. So your self-perception, you can have whatever self-perception you want, but you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production. You don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. You know, it's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and no matter whatever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. It makes no sense. You don't get your own.
I too want to identify as handsome and brilliant.
Pronouns. That's grammar. That's language.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional.
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be mental illness. It could be it's a lot of different. With children, you know, there's also just a basic.
So I just want to pause right there because he mentioned mental illness, and so she takes that as a negative. And I think that's funny just because we're supposed to be vocal about mental illness. Whether you have like some anxiety disorder, I think I think we're supposed to be able to express that without being a negative. And she assumes that's being as a negative, whereas he's just expressing that's what it is. Like whether you agree with it or not, whatever. Although there is gender dysphoria, but I mean the fact that she already assumes. Because already she assumes the pejorative of it, you know, when we're supposed to be talking about this in a normalization level, right? And so I think that's funny that they assumes that already.
Confusion that all kids have. Like that's why when you hear a parent say, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came to me and said that I'm a girl now, and so that's what I'm gonna raise him as a girl." No, you're a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids. When a 4-year-old boy comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," here's a good follow-up question. What is a girl? Ask him what he means by that. What do you mean by girl? And when you ask him that, here's what he'll tell you. He will tell you what he really means is that he wants to do some of the things that girls do, like play with the dollhouse, or you know, he likes the color pink. That's fine, play with the dollhouse, but you're still a boy. And that's a question I would like to throw out to other members.
Also, pause right there. Matt Walsh mentioned this on his show, and I agree with that. So, in a sense that back, like classical feminists would use probably like in the 60s, questioning gender norms, when they were saying if a boy plays with a dollhouse or a girl plays with a truck, G.I. Joes, whatever, what have you, traditionally female and male roles, right? That is breaking the roles. That is. So, like, when we say, like, gender is a construct and everything, so a boy playing with a dollhouse is fine, you're breaking it down. It doesn't necessarily mean those are tradition. That doesn't mean that dollhouse makes him a girl. Nowadays, if a boy plays with a dollhouse and if a girl plays with some G.I. Joes, they're automatically, oh, you're a boy or you're a girl. You know, like, because by playing with those things that you are automatically a girl or boy versus just breaking the actual norm of the role, you're actually breaking the role as a person, you know? And he mentioned this, like, by trying to break down the roles of a person, you're actually enforcing the gender roles, right? So a dollhouse, if a boy plays with a dollhouse, it's not the dollhouse that is male or female. It's a boy who is male or female for playing with the dollhouse, if that makes sense, right? So again, like the dollhouse itself shouldn't, like, what should be like not male or female, it's just a dollhouse, right? And if the boy wants to play with it, it should just be a dollhouse and you should just treat it as such. But no, but like you're saying that's a woman's role, enforcing it, right? And so by a boy playing with a dollhouse, then that boy is now a female versus just wanting to play with a dollhouse. So yeah, so he's going to go into this whole next portion, which is obviously a lot of people have been snipping and everything, and let's get into it.
So the panel, actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology, is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman? Well, can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what is a female mean?
Well, that's
how do you define a
someone with female reproductive organs,
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing: when you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies, we can dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting.
So again, it's the whole XX chromosome type of thing, reproductive stuff, and it will continue because she goes they. Again, confusing.
Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female. You said, right?
Correct. Is a biological female.
So what happens if we have?
I love the smugness. She gets into they. Okay, they invent bias they. So I'm trying to be as nice and as generous in this video. But if I slip up with she, because for the most part, I think she although no, we're just gonna stop.
Maybe someone who is female identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained.
Maybe
doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're.
So they're oh my god, again. I'm just gonna say she. Her argument is that just by having, if you whatever reproductive organs you have and they don't work, I guess you're no longer human, or you're no longer of that sex because your reproductive organs don't matter or don't work. Like, no, that doesn't negate the fact that you, like, if for whatever reason, through maybe accident or naturally, you cannot produce children naturally, like, doesn't mean that you're any less of a man or woman because of that. I think that's hurtful to say, but let's continue.
You're talking about their reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not myself.
You used the word. So what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So
again, I love that she interrupting. Smug. I hate this.
So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman.
On that point though, I think this is where it's coming from, is this level of egoness. And sure, you can maybe define it as being defensive and just trying to control the situation, but I think there is a level of egoness and a moral superiority that they think that they're in, and I'll get into that later.
Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
that describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently. And so trans women are women too.
Okay, pause. I love this. The audience is on their side. I love this. She thinks she's actually making a great point, and I think it's hilarious, right? One, we're going in the circle of logic, right? So you're using the word to define your word and all that stuff, right? And so obviously that's a point there. I only bring the audience is because later after the show has aired, I guess that these two individuals are being depressed and they feel like Matt was attacking them, and so now they're being attacked and whatever. And so again, the audience was with them. Society, in a large part, is on them because you have a whole month and anything. You have LGBT commercialization in favor of them, so mainstream media is with them, and that's fine. Like, if you want your visibility, but the point is, she feels like she's being attacked by defining her side, right? So one thing that I want to get into with her whole definition of a woman is a woman, like a trans woman is a woman, like a woman is defined however you want and everything. And this is where the House of Cards situation analogy I bring up is because what you're saying there is, if trans women are women and women is this umbrella term, what you're saying is womanhood is subjective. And while that is true, because gender is a social construct, but what you're saying additionally is being womanhood in itself is hypothetical. Womanhood is theoretical, And I think that is super crazy to think about, like, because when you say anything could be a woman, then nothing is a woman type of thing, right? And so when we get into discussions, I think it's so, like, demeaning to say that womanhood is not just subjective, but really philosophical. I don't think a person's womanhood should be philosophical, right? Like, if I see homegirl walking down the street, I'm gonna make these pre-assumptions like, okay, like present as a female, I'm gonna address you as a female. I think it's human nature to make these pre-distinctive cognitive distinctions, like obviously we could be wrong, you know, like maybe I'm mistaken, like in a closer look, whatever, but we're gonna make these predetermined judgments on people, you know, again, they could be wrong, but as humans, we're gonna make the discussions, and this is how we just built our life, right? And for her to say that womanhood is, again, philosophical, I think is a problematic. So like, she's gonna go into like, talking about you're just gonna reduce people by their organs. Well, that's what the left is doing. They're gonna say instead of mothers, birthing people, you know? And so that's coming from the left, right? And so, it's House of Cards here, you know, so yeah.
And you want to reduce women, you want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood, and turn it into basically a costume that can be worn.
You know, real quick, let's just pause right there and like, let's just make this simple, right? This is aux cords, right? This is a female connector. This is a male connector. All right, so making it simple, biology, you know? Just being funny there. Obviously, the sex and gender, it's different and all that stuff. Whatever. So going into the next portion of the video, this is coming from the Matthew Walsh actual breakdown of the videos, and he's gonna kind of break down what just happened and everything. And so this is one part I kind of want to go into. So real quick, so roll it.
Around and around we go, or they go anyway. They hope to pull you onto the merry-go-round with them, making you as dizzy and confused as they are, which is why it's important to have simple answers, simple definitions, simple responses, and you stick to them. Let them twirl around and tie themselves into knots. You're standing on solid ground. Stay there. One more clip worth playing. After a very awkward commercial break where everybody sat in silence, awkward for them anyway. You know, I thought the whole situation was pretty hilarious. We came back with a supposed gender expert and college professor who provoked applause from the trained SEALs in the audience when she hit me with the old, "Why do you care so much?" routine.
There's biological sex, and then there is gender identity. Part of me wants to ask why you care so much, because it's really not that big of a deal.
Oh, yeah, can I answer that?
Again, love the smugness, right? Right, as if what she said was like the most mind-blowing thing ever, and I love how he destroys her in this portion.
Answer that question. I care about the truth. So basic truth matters. I want to live in a society where people care about the truth and we're grounded in truth. I care about children.
And she's still defeated. Oh, like, okay, truth. I hate that word, truth.
And these insane ideas about gender are being foisted on kids. And that bothers me quite a bit. I care about the women who are having their opportunities stolen from them. I care quite a bit, yeah. Now, another point I didn't have the chance to make there is that she wants me to care. She says, "Why do you care?" Well, I could have said, "Because you want me to." The other two people on the stage, they want me to care also. Their whole job is to go around insisting that everybody care about this issue. These people march in literal parades with banners and floats screaming into bullhorns that we all should care. It's just that they want me to care in only a very specific way and to draw very specific conclusions. So when she says, "Why do you care so much?" what she really means is, why has your concern about this issue led you to conclusions that I disapprove of? And so I gave her the answer. And it's important to always emphasize that our first concern is not fairness, it's not sports, it's not privacy, it's not even safety. Those are all concerns and they're important, but our primary motivation is to defend truth for its own sake. If there was a serious campaign to convince everyone that squares are circles, I'd be arguing almost as passionately against it. I'd even go on Dr. Phil to talk about shapes. It's not because I woke up one morning feeling very passionate about geometry. I didn't choose the fight. They're the ones who decided to wage an assault on this basic truth, and so I can choose to either surrender the ground to them or defend it. I don't want to live in a world where people don't know the difference between squares and circles. I also don't want to live in a world where people don't know the difference between men and women. And it really is as simple as that. And as I said, we should keep it simple.
Alright, so wrapping it up, final thoughts. I think that was an excellent point, right? I love that they're trying to diss him and gaslight him and be like, why do you even care about this, right? And he makes an excellent point. Like, they want me to care. It's just that I care against the narrative that they subscribe. They want me to care if I was a man doing pro-choice, you know, like I would be accepted. But if I'm a man that's doing pro-life, you know, then obviously, oh, you can't have a voice. You're like, no vagina, no voice type thing, you know, like, okay, like, well, if I was a man being on your side, then of course I have a voice, right? And so again, with this thing, just because you are talking against it, then you shouldn't care, right? You should only care, right? You should only care and have a voice if you are espouting what they want you to espouse, right? And so, again, that's the issue here, right? And like his last point about the truth is, of course, great. You know, like I said in the beginning of this video, does your argument, is it a house of cards or does it stand on it? Does it stand the test of time? Is it rooted in reality? Like, this is the portion of this that is like that kills me. Like, again, on an individual level, like, I don't really care what you want to present yourself as or how you want to present yourself as, and it is a problem for the rest of us in the rest of the world when you're telling me now I have to change my worldview to fit your worldview, you know. And it's like just because, again, we can put it in like the Christian worldview. Like, I would take issue when people like, okay, you gotta be Christian now. Like, you gotta be this now. Just because I'm Catholic, I can't enforce my Catholicism on you, you know? Like, that would be bad. That would be equally as bad, right? And so, I think all of this is insane, right? All of this is insane to the point where, okay, we're having these debates, and then I had the discussion with my friends last night. We are living in such like a good time. Like, obviously we have all individual problems, but we're living in such a good time that we actually have to have these first world problems and discussions. You know, when the reality of the world used to be there was war looming, and so I think it's funny. Okay, sure, we can have these discussions, and I think they're important too. But at the same time, you know, like, we are really talking about this versus elevating ourselves as a society. Well, I guess in their eyes, this is what you're supposed to do in like building a utopia. But I feel like the best thing to do to build a society is build yourself first, right? And the last point, right? And I think one thing that we can address here is that they don't think about consequence. Right? If in a generation's time, if in a decade, if people who are doing all of this trans, if we are still stagnant with suicides and abuse and harassment and everything, and it hasn't improved, I think that is something worth to discuss, right? Because they don't want to talk about the people that's being raped in schools. They don't want to be talking about all of these suicides or detransitioning. They just want to talk about the people who are transitioning, right? And I think that is important to factor in because, one, they're not going to be accountable, right? You're going to push this ideology, and if there is an adverse effect, are you going to double down, or are you going to be accountable? Well, you know what? I was wrong. Maybe we shouldn't have spouses. No, you're going to double down, right? And I think that's also an issue, right? And so I'll just leave it there. I ranted enough. And so with that said, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the comments. You know, it builds the algorithm. I'm at 2K right now. I want to build myself obviously higher, but like the goal in the next 6 months is to be at 2.5. I think that's a good goal for the next 6 months. Help me out. It does help when you hit the like and comment below and everything, have the discussion, and thank you again for watching. You can follow me at my own Instagram at HeyMitchMitch, and see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.